we have to be able to do this for all the daughters that don't have mamas and daddies standing in the gap for them and speaking up for them that are unsafe, or, unsafe relationships, or maybe it's just a financial thing, or maybe it's fear of not getting your education, whatever it is, but who is standing in the gap for them. And so that's where we really I teased Brian and I was like, that's the part of the story that got him fully in with us. But isn't it funny though that we had to walk through that with our daughter before we saw okay, again, what are we doing here? And so just one more piece in that story of our life, of just the unraveling of all the things that led us to being able to do this.
As a young child, Edwina Adams was quiet by nature. She would whisper when speaking. In boot camp, she was thrashed for not yelling loud enough. But when she discovered her ex-husband was a con man, she started to make noise, proving you don't have to be loud to make some noise. Now Edwina's on a mission to motivate. So kick back and tune in for candid conversations with those who have harnessed the power of their voices. Let's make some noise.
Welcome to Let's Make Some Noise, where you can make some noise no matter what you sound like, and where noise is my acronym for a narrative of inspiration, strength, and encouragement. And I have a super inspiring guest today. Her name is Melany Wolfe. Melany, thank you for joining today.
Thank you. It's so fun.
Melany is the director of Aggieland Pregnancy Outreach. It's a local to us, and it's in College Station, Texas. But she has had 26 years in the field of social work, and she has a degree in social work. And I know that Melany is super passionate about adoption. But so Melany, like I said, with this podcast, I kind of want to learn a little more about you, because I know some things that motivate you that have happened in your life, but I don't know a lot about who Melany was before any of these things happened. So if you don't mind, I'm going to dive a little deep. And who was Melany as a child?
Yeah, so man, there are so many layers already. But as a child, I grew up in East Texas. I don't have to say anything else when I say I grew up in East Texas, meaning so many good people, so many kind people, hardworking people. But also there was a lot, I think, growing up that I saw that I didn't feel like people were represented fairly, or maybe just the underserved. I feel like I saw a lot of that growing up. And early on, I kind of felt like just a calling, I think, in my spirit of who's standing up for those people, who's speaking on their behalf. And so I think even early on, I felt like calling to social work. Now, of course, I didn't know that when I was 6 or 7 years old. And I say I felt called to social work, but I also felt this pull on adoption, which sounds crazy to be 6 years old. I didn't even know anyone adopted,
Really?
or didn't even know any adoptive family. But I knew that I wanted to be a mama, and I wanted to help people that weren't able to speak up for themselves. And with that, I had all the baby dolls you can imagine as a little girl. I mean, I was a mama to those 15 babies, which is funny because we have 6 children now, so not 15, but there are 6 in my house.
You were practicing,
So,
yeah.
but my babies, though, so again, very different. My baby dolls were every ethnicity you could think of. I had white babies, brown babies, black babies, all the babies. And so that was another thing that was a little bit interesting for where I grew up, because, it was just different then. It was just very different. And so just early on, I thought that would be a picture of what my family would look like one day. And again, I had not seen anything like that, so I'm not sure where that came from, other than just God's prompting for me at a very, very early age. And so I think social work was put on my heart very early, and then I also think adoption was as well. So I grew up and went to school, got my bachelor's in social work, and just kind of stepped into different things, really not knowing what I wanted to do. But I did medical social work at first, which was really neat, because I feel like you kind of just get tossed into the deep end, and you never really know what you're going to get each day when you go to work. One day you may be serving in pediatrics, the next day maybe you're on labor and delivery, and maybe the next day you're in the ER. So you learned a lot about a lot of different kinds of things doing that. Did I answer that question good?
You did. That is so
Okay.
fascinating, and I'm really glad I asked you that question because I had no idea what you would say, but that makes amazing
Yeah.
sense. Like I said, knowing who you are today and what you do. Um, so let me ask you this. In your family as a child,
Yeah.
I'll have you fill in the blank.
Yeah.
See, if you were to say, in my family, the one thing you would never do is blank, like your family dynamics. So in our family, one
Yeah.
thing you wouldn't do doesn't mean that you didn't do it, but like, what was that dynamic like?
I think one thing that I wouldn't do, just my role in the family, I would not cause a stir. I would not, I was the peacemaker at all costs. And so that's
Mm,
hard whenever one person in the family ends up being the peacemaker. And I didn't want to be the peacemaker, so I feel
yeah.
like I never would have like stirred the pot, if that kind of makes sense. And so I was
Okay.
always the peacemaker, feeling like I needed to be the person to kind of bring everybody together. And if there was any conflict, I felt a lot of responsibility for that. So that's Melanie. What I would not ever do would be to stir things up, to kind of start drama. But as far as my family, one thing we would never do is we would never turn anyone away. I would say,
Mm.
like, turn anyone away that needed something, or turn anyone away from our home growing up. I feel like we were always very hospitable and we always had people over. And my family really taught us about serving others and just giving to others too. So,
Well, that is very good insight for sure. Thank you for that. So, again, we talk about on this podcast turning adversity into positive noise,
mm-hmm.
being that narrative of inspiration, strength, and encouragement. And I know that you've had adversity in your life, as we all have, but we all have different kinds, right? So here you are. You're a child who's naturally a mama,
Mm-hmm.
and what happens in your motherhood journey?
Yeah, so many things. And as you tell your story, sometimes you start thinking, oh my gosh, that's all linked together. So it's so funny, even now at my age, how I can see the hand of God in so many different pieces of my life. But even when I'm sharing those things, even now, I'm just like, oh, the little girl that was the peacemaker is now over here asking all the hard questions, and over here
Mm,
serving the people that aren't seen and they aren't heard. And so I'm really okay now at this point in life with not feeling like I have to be the peacemaker anymore. And I'm really comfortable in that, and not stirring
yeah.
up again, not causing drama, or not being full of peace, because I feel like peace comes from a
Hmm.
different place now. But I'm willing to step into hard conversations, willing to do the hard work, and willing to open my eyes to the things that aren't pretty around us. And what are we doing about it? We can't sit on the sidelines and not do anything about it. So as far as a mama, I have, I'm trying to think where to start with that. So there's so many kids. So we
Hmm.
have 6 children. We have 3 biological children. We have 3 adopted children. But if I roll back the tape, there's so many layers here, Edwina. I mean, it's just wild.
Yeah.
So, but if I rewind the tape, I have my oldest daughter passed away when she was 6 years old. And so there are bits and pieces of that story probably that you know. But she
Hmm.
was killed in an ATV accident, 6 years old. And that, again, like, that changes so much in your life, and it changes so much about what the next steps are that you take. And so I feel like through that accident, like, my husband and I, we just learned so much. We learned so much about our faith. We learned so much about what we believe, what we say we believe, what we actually believe, and then, like, what it looks like whenever you're praying to God and you're saying, like, I've done all these things that you've called me to do, and I've served all these people, and I'm a really good person. And, like, why, when we're praying to you about this, do we not get the answer that we're praying for?
Mm.
And then settling into that space of just being, like, just in the space where there's quiet and you're not getting your answers, and but you're still willing to say, but I'm going to serve him and I'm going to love him anyway, because if we believe even just a little bit of what our faith is about, if we believe a little bit of the Bible, we got to believe it all. And so it's either true or it's not. And so
Yeah.
where we landed was just how much he loves us and how much he loves our girl, and how we don't know all the answers to the story. But what we do know is how close we became to him during that time, and how he was our peace, and how he was just, it sounds kind of silly, but like, he was our person. He was my person even more than I ever had imagined before that. And meaning even now, like you look back on that time and I think, how did we survive that? How did we not turn into this bitter, angry person that just hates everybody?
Yeah.
Because man, she was our first girl. I mean, she was our first daughter. There's something about that first one, there's something about all of them, I guess. But your first one, I feel like it's almost like we grew up together. And
Yeah.
so just making the decision at that point, like we're either standing in our faith and we're going to walk through that or we're not. And then I think when we came out, as much as you can come out on the other side of that, like what are we doing with that? What are we doing with our hurt? What are we doing with this lesson that we've been taught as far as who he is and about him standing in those storms with us? And when you come out of the storm, all the chaos that comes out of that storm. And so we just kind of had to make a decision. Are we gonna share him with people? Are we gonna share our hardships? And what are we doing about it? Because if we're not doing anything about it, it's just, what was the point? And so it took us a really, really long time to kind of figure out what to do with that. And so over the years of all of that, I would say just trauma, sadness, we also had so many amazing things that happened. We had our daughter Ashley survived that same accident. She was there. She was involved in the accident, and she walked away. And so she was 4 years old, and so she was healthy and perfect in all the things. And so we were absolutely counting our blessings for that. But I was also pregnant at that time with Anna, who is our next daughter in line. And so I had just found out I was pregnant. I was about 4 months pregnant, actually, and that was another hard piece. Like, how do you hold both things at the same time? How do you hold this grief and this loss over here, but then you're so excited about this new birth and this new life over here on the other side? And so she was born, I think Allie's accident she passed away in August, and then Anna was born in January. And so I prayed and prayed and prayed that it would be a boy, and we knew it was a girl, but I was like, Lord, I think we're mistaken. I think it's going to be a boy, because there's no way you would take one girl and then give me another, because that's not working. So I was convinced in my heart that there was no way I would be able to just love this little girl like I did her. And then, of course, as you know, all of us mamas, like when we have one baby and we're having our next one, we think there's no way I can love my next baby as much as I love this one. And then they're born and you look at them and you're like, what was I thinking? This is ridiculous. Yeah. You have so much love in your heart for them. And it ends up that she's probably my daughter that I'm probably the closest with, the most emotionally attached, I would say, to her. Just together, we have a very unique relationship. And so that was a blessing that came out of that. And then Elena came a few years later. And then we were done. And I say we were done, but we were done. I was done growing babies in my tummy, I should say that. That's how we explain it to our younger kids. And so, but we had always, again, had the heart for adoption. Brian and I had always talked about it. We had kind of talked about the timing of what that looked like. And so we just started praying about it. Like, what does this look like? And so I guess about the time Elena started kindergarten, we said, hey, she's 5. There's going to be a huge gap in these kids. What are we doing? And so we entered into the adoption program, and thinking it was going to take us a few years to get matched with a family. And that's kind of what I told my husband. I was like, hey, Brian, we're good. It takes a couple of years before you're matched. Don't worry. We've got some breathing room. It's going to be okay. And so we got matched in like 6 to 7 months. And he was like, what happened to the 2 years of preparation getting ready here? And so we got matched pretty early. And then we found out that we were having Drew, our first son. And my goodness, I mean, again, just balm for the heart of like just the goodness of the Lord to be able to give us the opportunity to have this precious baby, and just a gift. Like his birth parents just trusted us and just chose us. That even more, I understood more about just the gift of this little boy, and then also how much God loves us, and he wants to give us good things, and he wants to make us smile and our hearts be happy and all of those things. And so that was the sweetest relationship, and we felt a relationship with his birth parents, and that's been beautiful. And just so, all of those things unravel, and it seems a little bit wild and crazy at our house whenever we have these holidays. There's all of this, Drew's birth family and our extended family and all of these people, and you look at it and you think, how does this work? And then you go, well, this works because we love Jesus and we love people
Hmm.
and we want the very best for our family and for our kids. And so that's how it works. I mean, it's
Wow.
chaotic, all these moms and dads and all these people, but it works beautifully, and we do it for him. That's why we do it, because now he knows
Hmm.
who he looks like. He knows the story of the day he was born, all of those things. So then, a few years later, again, we were done. We were not adding to our family. We had 4 children. We were one in college. I think Anna was maybe in high school, and then Elena maybe middle school ish, something like that. And then Drew, I guess he was about 5 or 6 at this point. And so we were home study approved for during this time that the agency that we had worked with before, um, they needed basically respite for these kiddos, and we had done that several times. If kids needed a place to stay while maybe their mom was in the hospital having another baby, and mom needed this little one to be just cared for a few days, we would take those babies, we would love on them, and then their mom would be ready for them back, and we would send them home, and we felt just super like, I got my baby fix. We got to love on babies. We got to play and do all the things, but we got to send them back home, which was great. And so we got a call about our 2 youngest that we ended up adopting, but we didn't really know that we were stepping into that at first. We thought there was a possibility because they had said at one point a long time ago, we had said we may be open to adopting older children. I mean, it was just a mentioning, just in conversation to our pregnancy counselor. Her name was Carla. And then she remembered that though. And so she called and she's like, hey, we need just respite for them a while. We're finding a family for them. It's a little harder to for this placement because they were older, and it's hard for people to take that responsibility of 2 children
Hmm.
and 2 children that have had some hard things happen in their past. And so, but we said yes. We said yes to taking them for respite, and then they never left. And so, but that was not the plan. The plan was just to give respite, but they were our babies. They were supposed to be in our family. And same thing, we have an open adoption with their mom, and that looked a little different. It was a little harder in the beginning. It's not the same story as Drew's birth family because we didn't get to go to prenatal appointments, and we didn't get to be there whenever they were delivered, and they just had some hard things that they had to go through. So that relationship was a lot different. And just messy. And, adoption, there's so much trauma in adoption no matter what. I mean, even if it's birth birth parents finding the most ideal adoptive parents. I mean, we always say like somebody is leaving the hospital brokenhearted.
Yeah.
Whenever our families go through an adoption process, because a lot of times birth moms change their mind at the last time, and then that adoptive family goes home and they're crushed because they thought they were the ones and they thought they were chosen, and then they leave and they don't have a baby. And then the same thing could be said though for the birth mom. She has to place this baby in the hands of another family to raise them. So much trauma involved. So even though Avery and Audrey's mom knew adoption was what she needed at the time, I mean, so much trauma for those babies to just be in a different home,
Hmm.
a different family, and just hard stuff. Like I feel like we knew it was God's will. We knew it was what we were supposed to be doing at the time. So I think sometimes we think, okay, Lord, this is your will. This is what you want for us. So can you just make it a little bit easier because it's really hard over here. And we kind of feel like we're doing what you said. And so, I mean, you can at least make it easy over here. We're walking with you. We're doing what you're telling us to do. Man, but then it doesn't happen like that because it's still hard and you still keep walking through stuff. And so I don't know. I think just sometimes as believers, we think if we're following him and doing what he wants or what he's called us to do, that it's just going to be easy peasy. And it's just not. It's just not.
Hmm.
And so I'm trying to think now those 2 little babies they're about to turn 11 and they're about to turn 13. And so
Hmm.
those are the end of the wolf pack, we say. That's it. No more. So
Well, that's
yeah.
awesome. Well, you know what I'm hearing, Melanie, is that, because now you're in this position as director
Mm-hmm.
of Aggieland Pregnancy Outreach. So you work with people,
Yeah.
young women,
Yes.
who are looking at giving up this baby.
Right.
I'm going to cry, so
I
excuse
know.
me.
No, I say when we stop crying, it's time to stop doing the work. you know, I was going to tell you too, I don't know if you're interested in the piece that linked me to APO in that piece, because there's so many moving parts in that story. But, I was a pregnancy
Mm-hmm.
counselor at Aggieland Pregnancy Outreach for years, serving mamas and serving babies. And
Mm-hmm.
I really had a heart for that part of the work because I loved my kids' birth moms so much. And that's a unique
That's
piece
awesome.
of that. Like, we wanted the best for our birth moms because we loved our kids' birth moms so much. And I think just learning that piece over the years was super helpful for us being able to do our job well here and being able to care for those birth moms. Because a lot of people, we know we care for the adoptive family, and there's so much that goes into helping and supporting them over the years as they walk through parenting their little ones. But oftentimes, birth moms are just not um, not respected and not cared for and not just loved on for forever. Like those
Yeah.
birthdays and those Christmases that they're just grieving the loss of that little one. Like, you never forget. And my personal loss with my daughter connected me so much with these birth moms. It was very different.
Mm-hmm.
Their babies are alive and they're doing great and they're with different families, but grief is grief, no matter how you look at it. And so I feel like a lot of times that connected me to these other women, just the empathy side of that, of like, your baby's
Yeah.
not
And
here with you.
exactly. And that's what I was going to say is like, how crazy that your connection with your loss, how you can connect with those
Right.
late young ladies.
Hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then, oh, and then to bring in like your childhood passion
Yeah.
for having all these kids.
Yeah. And
It's
it's just,
beautiful.
it's the most, because you don't see it unfolding when you're in it. You're just like, what are we doing over here acting like we can raise 6 children? Like, there is no way. We are tired, and we're older now, and we've got, my husband said the other day, Audrey just went into intermediate school, and he said, no more PTO, no more of that. He goes, we get a pass. Once you get to the
Huh?
sixth child, you no longer need to have to do that.
You
So
have paid your
we're
dues.
just, man, we're plugging away at it though over here, and they're really
Hmm.
good. But you don't know what you're doing sometimes. You're just trying to be obedient that day,
Hmm.
like asking for guidance just for that day, because it's just too overwhelming when you look at the big picture. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of where we are with Aggieland Pregnancy right now too, because I'm new serving in this role as executive director. It's new, but I look back and I see the different roles that I've served here, and I've done so many of the different positions here that now help me to do my job now too, because I don't have to say I don't understand where you guys are coming from. Other people that work here, I'm able to say, oh yeah, I know because I did that job, and so it just makes it
Mhm.
a little easier. Um,
Yeah, let me ask you a question. This
yeah,
is from when you first started talking about like
sure.
your grief process
Uh-huh.
and how you said, you're praying, you're like,
Yep.
God, where are the answers?
Yep.
Looking back now, because while you're in it, you cannot see it, right?
For
It's
sure.
just feels like silence. So now can you see that like, okay, he was listening,
Hmm.
just things had to happen.
For
Do,
sure.
do you feel that way?
I do. And I'm not gonna I have to be super honest and say I would no one wants to suffer that. I'd take my girl back in a
Right.
heartbeat today. There's not a morning that I don't wake up that I don't miss her. There's
Yeah.
not I thought a lot through that. I'm like, on the day until the day I die, I'm gonna wake up and miss that girl. The thing I think that makes it bearable is that I know where she is, and I know that there's the rest of the story. And I think that's what makes it bearable as believers, is like that's the next place. That's where we get to go and see her. And so without that though, how do people do this? But I do see, like, just the scripture that talks about what Satan meant for evil, God can make it good. He can, all the things that could have destroyed us, like, he can turn that around and he can make it beautiful. And I feel like where we are now is him using that loss and that grief we walked through, and the hard, just the hard times we walked through, and all of that, to be able to say, this is what you're called for, Melany and Brian and the Wolfe family. Like, this is where you're going now, and this is why you're going there. you see grief, you see trauma, you see hard things, you see women that you served all these years that are struggling to parent. They have lost family. They have no support. They've walked through trauma. They don't have a house to live in. What are we doing about it? What are we doing? Like, are we just sitting here, like, patting their hand and just saying we feel really bad for you? No, we cannot do that. We've got to do something about it. And so that's what took us into this next phase
Yeah.
of what we're about to
Yeah. So,
into.
and so you've answered that call,
Yeah.
and you guys have purchased this. Is it a former like fraternity or sorority house? Is that what it
Yeah.
is? Because it's big.
It is. It's huge and it's crazy. This is not what we thought. So funny how we'll be like, okay, Lord, this is our plan. And then he's like, yeah, no, that's not, it's not your plan.
Well,
It's mine. And this is what we're going to do, you know?
yeah. What were the actual background logistics of that? Did you just like go to a commercial realtor and then they were like, "Hey, there's this," or did you come across it?
Well, it was kind of crazy. So, um, it's a little bit of a rewind again. I'm sorry too. That may be way too
No,
much
that's fine.
information, but, a few years ago, my husband retired from the company he was working for, and he was successful, and we had an opportunity to basically invest in some kind of type of ministry. We had decided here's a portion of money that God's calling us to give to ministry. What's our ministry going to do? What is our family going to do that will leave a legacy for what we're about, what we stand for? Like, what does that look like? And so, I had worked at APO all these years, and we have seen more and more women struggling with housing, and more women have coming here with newborn babies, and we're having to figure out housing for them. Like, what is happening? And there were many things, I should say, happening at the same time. So Brian and I went for a retreat one weekend at the Oaks. It's out in San Francisco. It's with Bob Goff. And anyway, he has this great
Wow.
retreat center. And we got to go out there and spend some time really just being quiet and turning all the outside noise off, and really like thinking about what's the next half for Brian and Melanie going to be. And with that investment that we had the opportunity to make into some kind of ministry. So we didn't start off thinking it was going to be APO. We thought it was going to be Brian and Melanie are going to start a maternity housing program. And so, we jumped back out into life thinking, no, we're just going to do a maternity house, knowing nothing about it, just knowing we just wanted to be able to serve, and we wanted to be able to help women and children. And so that's kind of what prompted it. We went and talked to Kim, who was our previous executive director here. And I mean, it has always been a dream of hers too, to be able to provide housing for women. And so we just went and talked to her and said, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? And she's like, well, of course, I love it. Like, we've wanted to do something like this for years. So we kind of went back and forth with what that looks like. Are Brian and Melanie starting this housing? And then maybe Aggieland Pregnancy, when they have women that need housing, would they be able to refer them over to us? Or what does that look like? So the more we kept talking and praying about it, all of us together, we decided that we would put the maternity housing program with APO. And so it would be just one more program that we were able to offer women and families as they came through our door, of a reason or a way that we can say, we want you to be able to carry your pregnancy to term. We want you to have all the resources you need to be able to parent. If you have an unexpected pregnancy, we want to help you. And we're not just going to say we're going to help you find out you're pregnant, and now you're pregnant, and now what? Like, we want to be able to walk with these women throughout pregnancy, through parenting, all of those different things where people need us. Like, we all need someone walking through those stages of life with us. And so that was our hope. And that's what we felt like God was saying to do as well. And so Kim and I started working together, and then it was about the time she was kind of stepping into retirement, but it was really hard because she was here for 26 years, and what does that look like? And so we just kind of had to walk through that piece. And so she ended up retiring. I ended up coming in and knowing full well that our purpose was going to be adding that fourth program, which is maternity home housing. And so when it got time to name the place, I was not for sure thinking Allie's Place. I mean, we had always dreamt of doing something in her name, in her honor. But that's the crazy part of the story, how it unravels. Like, we weren't thinking that the name of the maternity home was going to be Allie's Place. We were just thinking, this is what he said to do next. Like, this is what God said to do next. And so whenever it got time to name the house, we kept talking to our staff about it, talking to friends and family. And we had years ago thought about naming a place Allie's Place, but we were thinking of like literally an orphanage in Africa, because there's some orphans there. We thought it was going to be an orphanage in Africa called Allie's Place. So then one of our friends was like, well, what about the place that you thought about a long time ago? Like, why aren't you naming it Allie's Place? And we were thinking, well, because APO, it's not really Brian and Melanie anymore. And so talked to our board, talked to the staff. They're like, that's the name of the place. Like, why are you trying so hard to make it be called something else? Like, this is clearly the story of what it needs to be called. Like, this is the reason why you guys are doing everything you're doing. And we knew that, but we were trying to not make it the Brian and Melanie show and the loss of Allie show. We were trying to make it about this beautiful story of why we're doing what we're doing here is for serving other people because of these hard things we walked through. So then when we finally felt the freedom to go, okay, it's Allie's Place, that's the name. Oh my goodness. I mean, I just sat and wept. I was like, Lord, are you letting us do this? Like, are we really getting to name this place after her and what we've been just looking for and what we've been just wanting, how we've just wanted to honor her memory in that. And so whenever we got the okay from everyone, it was like they were all like, yes, it's very clear this is what you need to do. We were just holding on to it, just trying not to make it, I don't know, we just gone back and forth a lot about we don't want it to become this sad story of, oh, that's so sad, their loss of their daughter. Of course it's sad, but we wanted it to be like here's the redemption story. This is what we're doing. We're taking these women
It's
that are
beautiful.
broken and these women that are struggling and they need someone to be able to walk into Allie's Place and to feel the spirit of acceptance and just joy and just community of like, here are your people, we are your people, and we're going to come around you and we're going to show you the light and we're going to serve you and we're going to love you and you are accepted here. And so that's kind of,
it's so amazing.
right?
It
It's
is
just
so
so
beautiful.
crazy and exciting. You know, there's other people that tell the story better than I do. I just get so excited and I start talking about it, but it's just so sweet whenever all the pieces started coming together for us to be able to say, oh my gosh, we are getting to do this. And so the fraternity house part, we had originally thought we were buying, we actually bought some acreage. We thought 8 or 9 acres of land. We wanted to build a campus. So let's go build a campus for Allie's Place. Well, then we have a realtor that we've always worked with, and he called us and was like, hey guys, like this is random, but there's a fraternity house that came on the market, and it seems like it's checking all the boxes of things that like you are wanting to do with your maternity home. And of course I was like, you know, Brian brought it to me and I said, no, we're not going over there. That's ridiculous. We're not doing a fraternity house, you know. And we went and saw the fraternity house and it checked all the boxes.
Oh, that's so amazing. So, yeah, for people who don't know, like
Yeah,
APO, Aggieland Pregnancy Outreach,
sure.
you help young women who,
Yeah.
like you said, are in crisis pregnancies,
Mm-hmm.
who maybe they're considering terminating, right?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
then you say, well, there's these other
Yep.
options. You know, you can keep the baby,
Mm-hmm.
or we can find somebody to love on this child with you and for you.
Exactly right. We want to be able to encourage women, of course, always to parent their children, but we want to be able to help you do that where your baby is not just survival. Like, let's move past survival. Come on. We want abundant life for those babies. We want abundant life. And that's just what Jesus has called us to do and that's what he came to us for, you know, abundant life. That's what he's about. That's what the whole idea is of what we're doing here. It's going to be great. I mean, it's just so very exciting. Our 3 programs are, we do pregnancy counseling. We have a teen outreach program that's huge. We get to serve all kinds of teen moms and dads and do education through them. We have adoption services, and now with the maternity program, it should be opening in summer, which is crazy to me because I think now, like, we're seeing moms coming in having pregnancy testing, and I look at these women and think, oh my gosh, you could be the girls that are living in our house, you know?
Wow.
And it becomes very real very quick whenever you see a mama right here, eye to eye, going, okay, hey, we may have some more options for you very, very soon, friend. Just hold on, you know? It gets very exciting.
Wow. So you guys are a nonprofit, right? So
Mhm.
what do you need as far as donations
Yeah.
and either it's whether it's
Mhm.
money
Yeah.
or things?
Yes.
What do you guys need still?
So we have been able to pay for the maternity home. If APO owns some land that we were able to sell that a very generous donor gave us years ago, and we were able to sell that land, and it tripled in the amount of money that it was worth when we got it and when we got
Oh,
to sell it for. So
beautiful.
that was another
Yeah.
just, are you kidding? Like, this is crazy. So we got to sell that land. We were able to, that initial investment that we talked about earlier that Brian and Melanie were going to do, we were able to give that to be able to go toward the house too. So long story short, the house sold for $1.9 million, and we were able to pay that off. And so that's huge.
Oh,
That's huge for a nonprofit.
oh
It's
my
huge for
gosh.
anyone to be
Yes.
able to have that paid for. The big deal is, though, I mean, that's great and everything, but there's the remodel is like $1 million because it's
Hmm.
a huge property. It's almost 13,000 square foot. And bringing everything, number one, up to licensing code, doing all that. I mean, it's $1 million reno project. And so where we are now is we need to still raise about $400,000 to finish that project out, which is exciting that the community we've been able to do what we've been able to do already. Like, it's crazy. And but people, once they come there and they see it, they're on board. They want to help. They want to see it because, like, we can talk about it all day, but when you walk in there and you see the layout of what things are going to look like, I mean, you just want to be there. You want to be involved in it. And
Yeah.
so
Let me ask
that's
this.
how much we need.
How
Yeah, go ahead.
400,000? Okay.
Mhm.
And how many women and babies will you be able to house there at a time?
Yeah, so there are 13 rooms. And so 10 of these rooms we are going to have for women that are pursuing their higher education, meaning they've taken the next steps. They're either enrolled in some kind of trade school or A&M or Blinn or some kind of online school. And so they have the potential to stay with us for up to 3 years to be able to finish
Wow.
those programs. And so
Oh,
I mean, it
amazing.
just
So
takes
is
a
there,
minute for that to sink in. Like,
yeah,
they can
that,
finish their school,
right?
right?
Even as, like, I was a mom who had a stable home, I
Yeah,
had a supportive, loving
yeah,
husband. But he was in, we're middle aged and he was back
yeah.
in school full time and I had a
Uh-huh.
business and I was trying to raise kids and
Yes,
that was still hard.
yes.
So in those early years, those babies
It
are a
is
lot of
so
work.
hard. It is.
So that's amazing.
Yeah, so they can stay. So part of the little pieces of the program, we're still working out a lot of the fine tuning. But the first thing we had to do was just kind of find our lane, meaning what are we going to do that's not like everybody else that is doing? Because there are so many other great places in town that also serve women and also have some housing options. So what are we going to do that looks a little bit different from them? Because we don't want to reinvent the wheel over here if somebody else is doing that type of service. So we landed on the
Hmm.
education piece because we're here in College Station. Texas A&M is right here, and we have women dropping out of school every day because they have an unplanned pregnancy. Like, what can we do to help them stay in school? Like, we want you to have abundant life. We don't want you to just graduate. We don't want you to just go and start working at a minimum wage job where you can't provide for your little one. We want you to finish your school. We want to encourage you. So we will have educational support. We have on-site childcare, which what
Yeah.
like they will have childcare
Um,
to leave their little ones while they're in school, and then they also have to have a job, and so they've got to go to school and they've got to have a job. But while they're at school and working their job, we have childcare. It's going to be 7:30 to 5:30, and so they can do all the things they need to do between 7:30 and 5:30, and that's kind of how we're doing it. And then there's all different pieces of the program. The educational piece, there's financial literacy that they're learning. There's counseling. Just the ability to have counseling. My goodness, is huge for our women. It's huge for all of us. My goodness, but especially
right.
these women and giving them the space to say, like, your mental health needs are huge right now. Like, we're doing this once a week. We're going to do counseling, and we're going to do a group. We're going
Mhm.
to do a group once a month. And so just being able to invest in that for them is going to be, I feel like it's going to be life changing. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of what else just right off the top of my head. Parenting classes, and pregnancy classes. We already do some of those things, but the maternity home, all of our offices will move over there. So the first floor of the maternity home will be all the offices, the child care center, all of that piece. All the upstairs is the living, like the residents' living space, like their living room, their individual bedrooms, the just where they live, their home will be on the second floor.
This is what I've always loved about APO is
Yeah,
that you truly believe in the whole mother, right?
right.
I know even with the Mama Club
Hmm.
program, which helped teenage mothers who were pregnant and wanted to keep their baby.
Hmm.
It gave them an outlet, and I loved how, like, there were set rules, right? The mama mentors
Yep.
couldn't just give them handouts all the time or
Right.
be giving them money, and
Yep.
you weren't trying to teach them to be dependent on other people. You're trying to teach them that, look, you got this. With some support,
Yep.
you can do this,
Yes.
and you can finish school, you can
Hmm.
progress, you can get a home for you and your
Yeah.
babies. And I
Hmm.
just love that whole mom, whole parent
Hmm.
concept. And there was space for the men as well, for
Yeah,
the
no,
young
that's right.
men,
We
which
do the
was
dads as
amazing.
well. And I forgot to mention, this was really important. I don't know how I forgot this. 10 of those 13 rooms are for our higher education moms, but three of those rooms are emergency housing rooms. So they're 90
Mm,
day respite rooms, I would call it. It's just basically emergency housing for women. And so in 90 days,
okay.
I always say, man, in 90 days, we can do a lot. Like, you've got a case manager
Yeah.
assigned to you. We can help you find other options for housing. We can get you started on benefits, all the things that you need to do when you first find out you're pregnant that you need help with. And so a lot of our people will be able to stay 90 days. And then maybe in that 90 days, then they can take the steps that it takes to get to be one of those other residents that can stay there longer. I mean, that's what we want. But a lot of
Yeah.
women too that are in that 90-day time frame, they're not really ready for the program, as you would call it. They just need to figure out how they're going to feed their little ones tonight.
Hmm.
And so, it just seems a little premature sometimes when someone comes in and they're struggling with, I have no diapers and no food, for us to say, oh, what are your college plans? I mean, what? That's just not even appropriate. So that
Right.
90 days, we need you to take a deep breath. We want you to have your bellies full, and we want you to have a warm bed to sleep in, and we want you to have safety, and we want you to feel loved and adored, and we want you to see a counselor, and we want you to make sure that your prenatal care is taken care of. And then after we settle, then we're going to start talking about some other things.
Mhm. I love it.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for this work. I'm curious, how long has APO been around?
26 years.
26 years? Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you guys follow up with the moms, right? And with those moms who chose to, like, hang in there, keep their
Hmm.
babies, um, do you get feedback from them that says, thank you so much because I had a different alternative in mind?
Hmm. No, we definitely do. And it's the sweetest story when we get to hear those. We've had multiple people that come in and they want to know first of all about options. Well, abortion's not even legal in Texas, but they want to know how to get to the next places, or the abortion pill,
Yeah.
or all the many crazy options that there are for that. But we're able to walk them through that time and space, and then they have these babies, and they're like, in the moment you make decisions that's not even you. Like, whenever you're in crisis, you start thinking of things that you may not even morally or ethically believe yourself, but you're so scared that you just start listening to all this stuff that you don't even believe. So many
Yeah.
of the people that walk through our door are actually believers that are considering abortion. They just panic. They don't know what to do. Either I can't go home and tell my parents
Uh,
this, or how am I going to finish school and do this? Just so much fear is in their hearts and in their minds. And so I think what we have tried to land on when we have those unexpected pregnancies, those mamas come through the door is like, girls, take a deep breath and just pause, because you don't have to make a decision right now. Just pause. Just don't make quick decisions right now. Just hang on. Like, if you're thinking of
yeah.
this now, next week you may be thinking of something else entirely different. And so many women will come back and they've made that super quick decision, and you can't take that decision back. And so, girl, just pause, just hang on, and let us talk through all these different options that we have and show you that we can do this with you. And you've got support, and you've got people that want to help you. And it's not just people talking, like, we really do walk alongside you. And so, yeah, they come back. We joke sometimes, we're like, oh gosh, they never leave. We extended the age of our Mama Club program. It's now up to 25 because they never want to
Oh,
leave.
wow.
So now we're taking, it was 21, then it was 22, and now we bumped it up to 25. We have our younger moms, 19 and under, in a class, and then the 19 to 25 are now in a class as well, which is really, really sweet, because
Yeah.
we're teaching two different topics. What you want to know at
Yeah.
17 is much different than you need to know at 25. So,
That really says a lot about what y'all are doing for them. And you're right. Like, I totally get why so many women in that crisis mode make that decision
Hmm.
to terminate because they do feel like there's no support and there's all
Right.
this fear and and there's not accurate information out there
Right.
about um Christians who
Hmm.
truly care. Like,
Right.
I think there's what's thrown out there is just the judgmental Christians, and
Right.
they are out there, right?
Oh
We've all met them.
man,
But
it is
to me,
crazy.
that's religious people.
Mhm.
I think to be an actual Christian, there you
Right.
have to be Christ-like.
Right. Yeah.
So when I say Christian, I think Melanie,
Mhm.
and what you guys are doing at APO.
Thank you. That is so sweet. When I forgot to tell you a big piece of the story, and we may be out of time, but I just wanted to tell you a big part of our story is our oldest daughter Ashley walked through an unplanned pregnancy. Her senior year at
Mm,
A&M, she was
yeah,
about to graduate, and she called me and was like, "Mom," and I have no idea. And she had an unplanned pregnancy, and I'm thinking, "Are you kidding? This has been my life's work. What is happening?" But that also prompted, that's part of the conversation where when Brian and I were trying to figure out what we're doing, he said to me, "What do women do that are in situations like our daughter was?" I mean, she chose to parent.
yeah,
Landon's 4 years old, and she's the joy of our life. But in that moment, we were so brokenhearted. We were so, so sad because just everything that you planned, everything that you thought is just kind of gone. And so part of that decision making for us was, like we said, what do girls do? What do women do that don't have parents that are willing to say, no, go ahead and finish school. When the baby's born, just, you need to stay home with her for several months and take care of her and bond with her. And you just need to postpone work for a little while, those kinds of things. Like people can't do that. That's not realistic. And
right.
so that's where his heart was really like in it at that moment, because he's always loved our work and he's always loved what we do. But having walked through that with our daughter, he was like, we have to do this for all the other daughters. We have to do this. Oh my goodness. We have to be able to do this for all the daughters that don't have mamas and daddies standing in the gap for them and speaking up for them that are unsafe, or unsafe relationships, or maybe it's just a financial thing, or maybe it's fear of not getting your education, whatever it is, but who is standing in the gap for them. And so that's where we really I teased Brian and I was like, that's the part of the story that got him fully in with us. And but isn't it funny though that we had to walk through that with our daughter before
Yeah.
we saw, like, okay, again, what are we doing here? What are we
Mm,
doing? And so just one more piece in that story of our life, of our just the unraveling of all the things
mhm,
that led us to being able to do this. Um,
mm. So when are you writing your book?
I'm telling you what, at that retreat we
And
went
all this
to,
time that you have.
whenever we went to that retreat center in San Francisco, that's what they're all about, is write the book. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, can I just say it and someone else write it? Crazy. I can't pay attention long enough to write a book, but no, that's what I've heard a
I
couple of times, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
I think you
So
could, and you definitely have a book in you,
yeah,
definitely.
thank you.
So beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. I've
Yeah,
been a mess here almost this whole time
no, and
for
I hope
people
it
who
was
are.
easy to follow. I feel like when you're sharing a story and
It
there's so
was,
many
yeah.
years that are involved and there's so many moving parts, it's been more of a challenge for me to share. And so I'm getting better at it. But also whenever you're sharing something so dear to your heart, it's very, very hard to just like get through it,
Mm,
just get
it
through it and
is.
just tell the story. And so thank you for letting me jump around and share it like that.
No, you did amazing. And for those of you who don't know, Melanie, before backstage, told me that this is her first podcast. So we're so proud of her for
Oh,
doing this.
thank
And
you.
you did a great job sharing the story. It really shows like why this is happening
Sure.
and the beauty behind it for all the reasons. Oh, so how can people donate
Okay.
to APO?
Yeah, so we have lots of different giving opportunities. So we have a website, and it's specifically for people that want to walk with us and support us. That one's called friendsofapo.org, O-R-G. And then we also have an Amazon wish list on our website, and that allows people to buy like a case of diapers or a high chair or things like that, because sometimes people really want to give that way. And so there's an Amazon wish list on that website, and you can do that too. So those are the two ways, just the website, again, friendsofapo.org, and then the Amazon wish list if somebody wants to give something practical. And then as we move into finishing Allie's place, we're going to get to say, okay, we need 13 bedding sets, and we need dishes for our cabinets, and we need 15 rocking chairs, and like that kind of stuff. That's what gets people excited. No one wants to pay for paint, but right now we're like, oh, we need someone to pay for the paint too.
Or some plumbing. Yay.
Yes. So I think those would be the ways: the website, and then the Amazon wish list, I think, and then just if someone knows of a company that has a construction company, and maybe they want to donate flooring, or I'm just making that up, just whatever it is. I mean, just the community partnering with us in that too. So just the creative side of that, we're just super thankful, and people have been really excited to help us too. So it's been fun.
I love it so much. Thank you again for sharing. It's very moving. I knew it would be. I was prepared. I'm like, man, I'm going to cry today. And sure enough, I cried too much, but I
cry every time too, especially when someone else is sharing their story. I'm a crier too. It just means our hearts are soft. It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. So, all right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I don't think so. Thank you for talking to me and helping me get through this.
You're welcome. Thank you again, everybody. And for those local, go check them out for sure. I'm sure there'll be opportunities to do visits of it and different things. And
if
they want to
we've
come
had several
alongside
people that have come and done tours, so we'll take you anytime.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Melany. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for listening. Two things. If today's episode brought you inspiration, strength, or a new perspective, I would be so appreciative if you subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps me keep bringing stories and insights that matter most to you. And second of all, to stay connected or engage with the community, go to edwinaadams.com/links. That's LINKS. And remember, you're one step closer to building beyond your adversity and crafting a life of impact and purpose. Keep making noise, and we'll see you on the next episode.